Hello everyone, good morning. Please can we have someone confirm that they can hear me? Good morning, everyone.
We can hear you.
All right, thank you very much. Um, welcome to good morning once again. Welcome to week 4 of our third and fourth quarter for 2024 for the energy industry JIIPCC mentorship and internship program. I want to welcome both mentors and mentees. Okay. I want to welcome both mentors and mentees who are currently on call. We are very, very happy to have you all currently on ground. So please, I would like to just encourage mentees who are here to kindly also remind their co-mentees who are not yet on the call that the session has officially started and will be kicking off shortly. So moving forward, I'll kindly introduce myself. I am Dennis Williams and I will be your mentor, I say mentor moderator for today. Right. So moving forward, I'll be taking an announcement. JIIPCC Academy is giving the opportunity. We call it the JIIPCC Free Legal Clinic. And it's basically for creatives, entertainers, athletes, innovators, and startup. Right. We want to give we are giving this as a free opportunity for those who have disputes in relations to their careers and to this particular space. If they are looking for legal counsel, right, we are giving the opportunity for them to come register with us and get a 20 minutes consultation slot with our professionals. So we have professionals on ground who are willing to offer their services for free in regards to just disputes around creatives, entertainment, athletics, innovations, and startups, right? So if you have a business, there are disputes around it. We also give the opportunity for you to submit your contracts for review. You need someone to help review your contracts. Our mentors, our professionals, are on ground also to help review your contracts, and we are doing this all for free. So please, if you would like to take advantage of this, you can kindly reach out to me and I will do well to send you the link. It's the registration link is on the flyer, right? But you can also reach out to me and to for me to share the registration link with you, and I will kindly do that. I also want to like to appeal to everyone here. You can share the flyer. You can reach out to me, ask for the flyer, and share it with your friends, with family, with colleagues who you may feel may be interested in what we have to offer. So thank you very much. Moving into the business of today, we like I said, we're at week 4, right? Week 4, we've gone through week 1, week 2, week 3, and we are now at week 4. And our topic for week 4 is energy crisis, impacts and possible solutions. So we would be taking or we'll be looking or just quickly scrolling through our mentors for today, the mentors that we're expecting to help run us through class. And I can see, I think 2 of our mentors are already on call. But then let me start with Mr. Etsulam. Mr. Etsulam Audu. Mr. Etsulam Audu has been with us. I think he was here during the class for fossil fuels, and he's here again for today's class. You're welcome back again, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. We are happy to have you with us in today's session. Our second mentor that we are having for today is Mr. Ayobami. It's Mr. Ayobami Dafe Iyeola. Mr. Ayobami has also been with us in some previous classes. I think for week 2 and week 3, he was present. So thank you so much, sir, for joining. We really, really do appreciate your presence here. And last but not least, we have a new mentor that we expect to join us today, and is none other than Mr. John Ayola. Mr. John Ayola is a graduate of the University of Lagos with a BSc in engineering and also an MSc in petroleum engineering from the Institute of Petroleum Studies, Uniports, IFP, France. With several other certifications, John has a knack for learning and productivity in the environment of teamwork and integrity. He is currently a project developer at Energy Lighthouse. So these are the 3 mentors that we'll be having for today. We are happy or will be happy to receive presentations from them feedback from them when the mentees are done researching, and also we'll be happy to have them help answer questions that we may have as regards to this particular class. So while I call up the mentors, right, to come make presentations and to give us their talk and discussion for today, I would like to kindly appeal to the mentees to also prepare ahead so that when it's time for your presentation, right, you can just come up and make presentations without any much delay, right? So please, I appeal to all mentees to kindly start preparing for your to kindly start preparing for your presentation, right? So we'll be going first to our first mentor for today, Mr. Etsulam Audu. Mr. Etsulam, thank you so much for sharing your presentation. I'll be opening it right about now. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining in. I am trying to download the file you sent, sir.
Okay, okay. Uh, I hope I can be heard clearly.
Yes, sir, we can hear you loud and clear.
Our our issue now. That's one minute.
Yes, sir, your slides are up, sir. Mr. Islam, are you with us, sir?
Okay. Hello.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for joining in. Sir,
Yes.
your slides are up, sir. You can have the chance or the opportunity to make a presentation, sir.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody, and once again, and thank you, JIIPCC, for this opportunity. And the last time we had the fossil fuel industry discussions, and today again, I tried to create our time within the tight schedule. Sorry, I had some power failure. So I'm trying to change over to inverter. It's a bit dark in the background. So these are part of the challenges we have in terms of the energy crisis when you have supply cuts and all of this. So generally, I'll be looking into the energy crisis and basically what the energy crisis is and a brief history on the impacts to our society and also possible solutions and based on what the requirements are. I hope I can be heard clearly.
Yes, sir, we can hear
Please
you loud
confirm.
and clear.
Yes. All right. Okay. So if you look at the first slide, you'll be able to see a background of a power complex. You will see also energy crisis dilemma showcased, and you see a hand holding the energy crisis. It implies that the humans and the masses are those that are impacted mostly in terms of when there's energy crisis. So we'll look. Go to the next slide, please. So in the agenda introduction, what and the history, types of energy crisis, the causes, the impact, solutions, and then and conclusion. That's basically what I will look at. And just go to the next slide. So, in essence, what do we imply by energy crisis? Uh, there's any significant shortage in energy supply to a country or region to meet growing demand. Just 1 minute, please. Okay. All right. Sorry, my kids are trying to discover in the background. So, any significant shortage in energy supply to a country or region to meet growing demand, and these impacts economically. Generally, we understand that from the fossil fuel industry with discussions we have, we know that coal, gas, petroleum are significant energy sources that propel our economy. Renewable energy sources and solar, wind, hydro, geothermal are also energy sources that propel and supply the driving force for our economies. And when there is a shortage in terms of supply of any energy source to the population, there is a ripple effect. And this will lead to economic, social, and environmental challenges. It could cause the availability of resources that are able to meet up the demands of the population and industry generally. So if we look at generally, particularly in Nigeria now, one of the key issues that we have to be dealing with in terms of fuel scarcity is gasoline issues, where we are having a lot of lack of supply in terms of petroleum products and to the masses. So, okay, sorry, I just had the power on now. So a typical example is this: shortage of power, electricity demand not met because we lack the infrastructure and the transmission networks that are in place to be able to supply stable and reliable power supply. And I'm just having a typical example now. And the power grid just cut off, and I had to switch to the inverter. And this is like inconsistencies in terms of reliability of energy supply. And this can actually impact on our daily lives and also socially. Um, if you look at one of the pictures there, you will see oil, you will see renewables, you will see solar, and the world at large. It has been affected. So we have been having a series of crises in terms of energy. I will be able to go through the brief history of the energy crisis and how it's impacted on us. So insignificant, any significant shortage in energy supply is simply energy crisis that will affect the population, or industry, or a nation economically. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, so over the years, if we look at, we've been having energy crisis right from the 1970s, and even pre the 1970s and the 1900s have been also in terms of energy supply shortages. For significant areas that we look at in terms of the 1970s, we will consider when we have the peak oil demands, and also we're having also shortage in terms of oil embargoes from the OPEC nations. The developed countries as of 1970, as at then, there is more reliance on crude oil as one of the major global energy source, and most economics are driven by petroleum. What happened is that there were OPEC embargoes from Gulf countries between the developed nations and the OPEC producing nations. There are embargoes to cut down supplies, and this affected most developed nations like the US, Great Britain, and other European nations that mostly depend on the petroleum products to be able to survive in terms of transportation of goods and services. So this really, really impacted. This was one of the major energy crises that happened. Coupled to what is related today, you will see that a bit of diversifies energy mix. And so if you have an impact in one area of supply, you can actually supplement with the other. But I will go into that. So in the 2000s, we also have, in terms of oil prices, there was a change in oil prices. And also you look at a global force falling the US dollar in terms of that. We also have some issues relating to oil reserves being picked up, and some of the developed nations started saying that there's a drop in the reserves in terms of investment in oil production. So when we have this the rise in oil prices in the 2000s, you discover that we have what the global economic crisis in the 2000s, which impacted generally. These were driven by the increase in price of oil, and oil is a very strong product for the global economy. And when you have a spike in the oil prices, it's going to impact on the imports of petroleum products to developing nations. So this is one of the areas where we have an history of energy crisis. Within 2005, 2008, we also have some crisis in China, which has to do with some drop down in terms of diesel shortage, and this impacted on a lot of transportation issues in China. Also impact on the factory productions and all of that. We also have the 2008 crisis in terms of Central Asia, which impacted generally in terms of droughts, impacted on hydropower supply. This cut down in terms of electricity supplied to meet up demand in Central Asia. Then, if we now move to 2021, we had one of the first, we call it the first global energy crisis uh, post the pandemic. And this is after the COVID-19 pandemic, there is economic recovery. We saw slowdown in terms of investment in oil and gas, and because of the push to renewables. So with what happened with the COVID-19 pandemic, there is the idea that, oh yes, this is the best time for us to be able to be focusing on the renewables. But after the COVID-19, we had this post-pandemic economic recovery whereby aviation and all of critical heavy transport, everybody is coming back. There's economic activities resuming back after the slowdown. This put a burden on the supply for petroleum products as well as gas, natural gas, and all of these that affected the general dynamics in terms of the global economy. So if we look at in terms of 2021 energy crisis, you see that we started experiencing very high energy costs in terms of electricity, gas, Nigeria, LPG, fuel, petrol, gasoline, diesel, all of these had so much effect in terms of that. Then in 2022, we saw the issue that is anticipated in terms of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which we experienced a cut in the gas supply to Europe because over the period, Europe has dependent on the supply of natural gas through pipeline from Russia to Ukraine. And after the invasion of Ukraine, Russia, in geopolitical terms, had to cut the supply, and with the influence of the US and also Britain, most European nations were, and within the NATO alliance, were forced to ensure that they cut demand from, reliance on Russian gas. The Nord Stream 2 pipeline was also affected. So these are factors that resulted. We see that gas prices spiked in Europe. It affected production. It also increased electricity bills, household costs in terms of agricultural production, food prices increased. So another significant, let me just drive home to Africa, is South Africa energy crisis that started around in 2022, 2023. South Africa is coal-based in terms of their electricity generation, and a lot of impact was affected because there was power cuts, because a lot of coal generating power generation plants were affected. This resulted in blackouts in South Africa, which as of 2024, South Africa is recovering. So for Nigeria, if we bring back home, we have been having issues of fuel scarcity, and also in terms of LPG in high prices. We have been having underinvestment in terms of oil and gas, and also import of petroleum products. These are affecting us generally. So, and these are the dynamics in terms of when you look at what shortages and supply disruptions in terms of the energy crisis. Please, can we go to the next slide? So, generally, what are the types of energy crisis we experience in society? We have what we call the supply side energy crisis. This is it comes in where there is no availability of the energy resource, as for instance, fossil fuels or renewable energies, electricity. So there is a limited supply cuts. So we saw in terms of drop in oil supply, and also we are experiencing in terms of gasoline supply in Nigeria, whereby we have to import, and it's not enough. You'll be seeing queues for filling stations. So this is a supply side dynamics, and also there's also the demand side. It occurs when demand for energy exceeds the available supply. So this is cuts across the existing resources. Majorly, when there's a spike in demand and there's not much supply to meet up this demand, we'll be having pressure in the system. So when we also have with our global energy crisis and also looking at the oil production, we are saying that the global demand in terms of oil will improve and also increase in the years to come. Though the IEA and the U.S. Energy Information Administration brings out some cut back in terms of the demand. Some people are saying by 2030 we are going to be seeing peak oil demand, and the OPEC is saying no, we will still continue in the rise in global demand for oil and other energy sources. So for structural energy crisis is related to issues on infrastructure, distribution, transmission, and of energy sources. This is peculiar. Our national grid in Nigeria has been very old, archaic, and you see that there's an impact in terms of most of the times we have grid collapse in Nigeria. I don't know, this year, I'm sure we've had it more than 2 to 3 times in terms of the national grid collapse. So when you have this structural energy crisis, in terms of gas infrastructure, we're having vandalism on pipelines that supply crude oil for to refineries and all of this. These are times of structural energy crisis that will impact. So generally, these are the kind of types of energy crisis you will experience. So let's go to the next slide, please. So what majorly can cause the energy crisis based on what we thought? So that functionally, I look at three basic um, factors that actually cause the energy crisis. Everything right down dances around this. You have the shortage of resources. I've said it before. One key aspect, shortage of energy resources, which is like the fossil fuels, coal, oil, natural gas. We also have the renewable energy sources or disruption to the supply chain. We had the geopolitical crisis. If you look at what is happening within the Israel and also the Hamas war in Palestinian war, you see the sea routes whereby oil shipping through the Suez Canal actually has been affected because of the Houthis and try to target the shipping routes for oil tankers, LNG tankers. This is caused in times of supply disruption whereby oil and gas from Europe or going to Asia takes the longer route through the Cape of Good Hope, whereby it passes all the way from North Africa down to South Africa and gets into the Indian Ocean. So these impacts the dynamics of supply. We also see in terms of distribution of petroleum products, when you have very bad infrastructure like roads, pipelines, and all of this, you find out that the distribution of energy supply sources is going to be disrupted. Then we also have sudden upticks in demand. When there's a rapid change in demand, and like we had this in the COVID crisis, whereby there's a post-pandemic recovery, economic recovery is anticipated in terms of demand for natural gas, oil, and all of this, which in terms of that, because of what happened, the price of oil and gas dropped significantly, and most oil and gas companies curtailed down capital investment. So there was a drop in production. And this, in terms of the uptake of demand, they couldn't meet up immediately. So we started seeing OPEC really and Saudi Arabia and the US having some negotiations for them to release more from their reserves. And also, you will see that the US also is released from their petroleum storage reserves to be able to help in terms of refining and increase the provision for gasoline. So we have when you have wars, market manipulation, and industrial actions can also lead to localized energy strategies. We can have whereby companies that produce like Nupeng and Pengasen can decide to go on strike. Oil companies will impact on oil production. You also have excessive consumption can strain resources and lead to shortages. You also have outdated infrastructures, disruption of routes and the facilities that do that. There's severe weather cases. We have one area for in terms of hydro power is when you have drought. This will affect the dams in terms of power generation. So some of these causes, if you look at the secular what I have there, you will see all of the major causes in terms of overpopulation, We have so many poor infrastructure. We have changes in government changes politics. And this is also one peculiar area in terms of Nigeria, whereby there's no continuity in government planning and strategies in terms of the energy sector. So a new government comes in and comes with a new policy. These impacts on in terms of these are can cause energy crisis. We saw, I mean, prior last year before the Buhari administration left, the price of gasoline was less. And when this new government came in terms of these policies of subsidy removal and all of this impacted on the spike in crude, in petrol prices. This is really impacting on the general public, which led to hyperinflation. We also have when people are very wasteful in terms of energy use. This can cause energy crisis in terms of we don't imbibe in the culture of energy efficiency. So these are some of the causes in terms of what will lead to factors that will lead to the energy crisis. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So, how does the energy crisis impact on our well-being? You will see. Go to the first one. Yes. Okay. So there is an economic impact. Now, in terms of the economic impact, you look at high energy prices, which can lead to inflation, increased, the production costs will increase and decreased economic productivity. This is critical. We are experiencing this in Nigeria. A lot of manufacturing companies, Glasgow Cement Line, you will hear of GSK and other Diageo and all of these companies, because of high energy costs. Some of these companies and these small scale businesses rely on diesel generation and to be able to generate energy for their normal operations and production. This will increase production cost. It will increase in terms of agricultural inputs in machinery and all of that, and electricity demand. So high energy costs will lead to inflation. If you see the graph today, food cost, the price of a loaf of bread has spiked up because of increase in petroleum prices, and also there's a social impact. Energy shortage can cause disruption in our everyday life. You will see the lady with the lamp uh, uh, having candle because there's no power supply and no access to any good energy. These things happen, and it will affect both the education of our kids and the well-being generally and health-wise. So reducing in terms of heating. So if it's in the cold region, for instance, where you need the heating during winter and you don't have stable power supply, it's going to impact on the social life and the limited transportation. We're having issues in terms of transport cost. Today the public transport sector have the input for the gasoline, and because of high cost, the general mass, somebody in the mass, and generally will have this impact of increased prices for transportation. So, what is the political impact? It can lead to political tension, political unrest. We saw part of I wouldn't say the bad government is basically only on spike in energy, but it contributed in terms of energy costs. You will see a lot of riots and a lot of tension within the political sectors. It also has some geopolitical impacts. So environmental aspect in its causes and crisis can result to environmental damage and also lead to accelerated environmental degradation and climate change. Uh, so if we look at Europe, Europe has this energy green deal and trying to focus on renewables. And when the cuts in Russian gas came up, there is impact on gas supplies and also electricity generation. It started going back to coal power plants, which they have already planned for shut down. Some of the plants that were shut down in Germany were actually brought back in Poland. Some of these things happening. So you will increase emissions. So these are the areas in terms of the dynamics that it impacts on us. And when you look at the environmental aspect, you could see in the pictures fuel queues. You would see somebody producing bread. All of these. This is the general impact. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I took up some snippets in terms of news happening over the world, and you will see that multinational companies are exiting Nigeria because of high cost of doing business, and basically because of the lack of infrastructure, and also especially high cost of electricity. You see, more than 600 million Africans cannot access electricity, and the lack of reliable energy continues to cause social economic development in the region. So subsidies for fossil fuels in South Africa, because of the energy crisis, hit around the 7.5 billion US dollars. So other ways for our government to do this is that they will have to help in terms of increased price. Even in Europe, during the energy crisis, they also did some incentives for reducing the cost of this. So energy crisis can lead to higher energy prices, which can increase the cost of production and reduce consumer spending. So I mean, families right now are strained in terms of their budget, family budget, because like they spend more in terms of transportation to work. Or some of us that work, if you live in Lagos or very urban centers whereby you commute, because every day when I came back from offshore where I work, since I came back, the price of petrol has been increasing. Every day I go to the pump, it's like very challenging. I saw from 910 in Port Harcourt down. Yesterday I bought about 1,330 per liter. So some of these things, it has increased the budget for the family. There's a strain economically in the general population. So this can slow down economic growth, increase inflation, and cause unemployment. So these are some of the impacts we will see. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so what possible solutions can we take in terms of mitigating also the energy crisis? Another interesting area is that we will need to invest in infrastructural development. There should be a robust gas and power network infrastructural roads in place. For particular for the developed countries, they have the capacity because of over the long period existing robust infrastructural systems. They can be able to move from one energy source to the other. For Africa, particularly in Nigeria, we don't have that dynamics in our energy mix. So if we can be able to build strong gas network, a stable and reliable energy grid that is accessible, microgrids, then in terms of where there's supply disruption in one energy source, we can be able to migrate to the other and be able to adjust easily. Enhance energy efficiency. When we talk of energy efficiency, we want to use energy in an effective way. If you see, I put in 7 ways to save energy in terms of how we use in the housing, in transportation, in building efficiencies. You can have the time to look at it. I think I don't have too much time to delve deeply anymore into all the specifics. So embracing renewable energy, we can actually, in terms of climate change as well as grid stability and access for energy, we can actually, for when we talk of rural areas, we can develop microgrids which can be able to set. So today we see that solar, like now I have an inverter, the power cord is off, the grid is off now. I have to switch to inverter and be able to, maybe if you have solar and all of this, this is times of the ways you have. So implementing sustainable energy policies in terms of energy policies and plan, ensure diversified and sustainable energy portfolio. This is very important for us. We need to hydropower, fossils, nuclear, and all of this can help in terms of the period of energy crisis. Then government have direct assistance. Now, subsidies, well, I'm not too much of support for subsidies, but there is going to be subsidies when you have energy crisis. The government has to intervene to curtail price optics to be able to help the masses to cope within this strained period. We also have as I've talked about, enhanced grid access. So these are points of generally in terms of global and as well as Africa. These are some of the possible solutions that can be looked into when you consider the energy crisis. Then let's go. I was specific a bit of Nigeria. For Nigeria in particular, so if you look at that, you can see that we will be able to, in terms of the energy systems and also build infrastructures to be able to help in transportation. We can also help in terms of storage facility solutions, imbibe into renewables, microgrids, so many things in terms of the clarity and transparency from the government. We also restructuring of the pricing for energy. We see our petroleum systems. We need to have strategic reserves that will help us in terms of back end when we have energy crisis. We need to have infrastructures in place for gas and also the national grid. These are some aspects and possible solutions that can help in terms of creating a better platform when there's energy crisis in Nigeria. So particularly with the current fuel scarcity issues, we see the politics around the Dangote refinery and gasoline sales to Nigeria. The government needs to be clear in terms of its pricing policy. It needs to be clear in terms of the infrastructures. It needs to be clear in terms of the enabling environment for investment into our energy systems. This will help in promoting a better energy access for all, and also ensure that we have policies that support renewables as we have this push for climate change. Okay, let's go down to the conclusions. Right. So, in summary, the energy crisis have the potential to significantly affect the global economy, and then several reasons may lead to their occurrences in the future. Although practice focusing is challenging, for precise forecasting is challenging, it's crucial that organizations, people, and government be ready for probable interruptions in energy supply networks. So what I'm trying to say is that we can forecast. It's to be able to be precise, we can forecast, but it's a very challenging one. We cannot tell what it look like in terms of 30 years or not from now. But the present policies in place and how the government handle the existing infrastructure, create enabling environment, and have a robust energy mix can help in terms of when there's energy crisis. All right. And next, thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope that I've been able to share some light on this topic. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Etulam, for that wonderful presentation from your end in relation to today's topic. I'm sure our mentees were able to pick up several things from everything you've said, and it's nice that you were able to help us run through that. So moving forward, so we'll be moving to our next mentor, and then we'll be taking the next mentor before we go to mentee's presentation. So I think I would like for us to have Mr. John Ayola, if he's currently here on call with us. So I would like to take your presentation and just your discourse on today's topic in like the next 20 minutes, if that will be possible. And then we'll move to Mr. Ayobami. So, Mr. John, are you with us on call?
All right. Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. It's nice having you on in the session.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And that was a nice presentation from Engineer Itulan. So you want me to move on? You don't want to maybe take a breather? Maybe get some reactions from the mentees, yeah?
Yeah, that will be fine, sir. So please, can we have reactions? Please, let's make this session interactive. Yeah, obviously, Mr. Etulam has said quite a lot, right? So please, you can kindly, so that we know that we are having more of an interactive sessions and mentees are paying attention to what's going on. So please, let's react on the chat box. You can use the chat box to just kindly show that you. Yes, all right. Thank you so much. Please, can we just have more people react so that we can know that we have people on call? You're welcome. It's nice seeing you, Mr. John.
Yes, thank you. I decided to turn my camera so see ourselves. Okay, so I know time is of the essence, and I see that there are reactions in the chat box. So maybe I should just proceed. Now, can you confirm that I can screen share from my end, or you should be doing that?
Well, if you want me to share on your behalf, I can do that, but you can also do that if you want to.
Okay, no. There's joy in sharing, so let me share from here.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
So you just give me a few seconds to connect on the laptop as well. So while doing that, to save time, I'm just going to do. I see that there was an introduction already. I'm glad to be here. Mentorship is critical. Mentorship is how you. In fact, when you talk about energy crisis, another angle to it is the professionals, right? That can manage the energy industry, whether it's the traditional oil and gas industry or now as we're pivoting to the renewables. So there's also a crisis of beyond be aside from the issues right themselves, which some of them have been highlighted, infrastructure, you know, and what's of it. There's also a crisis of having the technical know-how. You'd I don't know how many of us saw in the news. How many months ago was that? Maybe 3 months ago. Nigeria lost about an investment of about $10 billion, right? That could have come from Total Energies, and they lost that. One of the reasons, anyway, not the entire reason, that the CEO, Mr. Patrick Poyon, gave then was that the resources, right? That there's also have been implying their dissatisfaction with the Nigerian local content that mandates that they can't have expatriates, doing the jobs that we can do. But that tells us something. That tells us that globally, value is recognized. Okay, I think to join. I hope I'll be able to screen share now. That tells us that value can be is recognized and is identified regardless of age, creed, or race. Right. So as we surround ourselves, as we immerse ourselves in the information system, as we get involved in a mentorship series like this, we are preparing ourselves to be the solution, really, to be the solution to the energy crisis of not just today, but tomorrow. So I hope that gets us motivated to pay keen attention. So my slide is going to be up in a few seconds. Kindly confirm when you can see it. By the way, I hope I'm not speaking to myself. Can someone just give me feedback? You never can tell with this network.
Yes, sir, we can hear you. We can hear you, and your slides
great.
are.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so energy crisis impact and possible solutions. And thanks to everyone that dropped messages in the chat box. Glad to be here. It's going to be an exciting session. So taking it up from where Engineer Itulan left it, this is just agenda. So we're on number 2 now, which we're having the mentors presentation, and I'm second in line. Now I'm going to take a bit of a broader scope, right? And that's what you see here. We'll look at, and perhaps this will also touch on some of the things you've learned. It's important to know that one of the most important things to learn in this 21st century is how to learn, right? Because we're going to be having information revision more frequently and more rapidly than ever before. So your ability, so this mentorship series is not just about what you're learning, but how you're learning, right? So your ability to pay attention, to connect new knowledge to previous knowledge. This is critical. And this is what will now lead you into sentences, because nobody's going to, we're not lecturers, right? We're not just trying to drum things or, share slides. No, we are trying to trigger something. We're trying to wake up something in you. We want you to be able to synthesize. And I'm happy with the, I saw the presentation from, and I'm looking forward to your actual presentation. I saw the slide from the groups. So please, as you listen actively, listen such that you are now asking yourself, okay, how does this new information, how does it compare with what I had known before, right? Not just that, because that's how you recollect. Anyway, you recollect by tying what is you're experiencing in the moment with what you have known before, right? And then the next question to ask yourself is, what can I do? What can I do as a result of this, right? So please do keep this in mind. I really, I'm very concerned about learning, and I hope that we all on this call would be learning as we have already, even for the last 20 minutes. Okay, so having seen that that introduction. So there's energy usage and civilization, right? One of the major trends, it's important that you study global trends as you grow, right? If you want to be an important part of the solution to world problems, and there are many of them, energy being chief of them, amongst them, you see that there is a direct correlation. There is a direct correlation between the energy usage of any country and the economic growth of that country, right? There is a direct. Now, if you go back and check, and we're going to be seeing that, I think in the next slide, if you go back and check the top 10 economies, right? Or if you look at, if I ask you what's the largest economy, can anyone just say, please, what the largest economy is? You can chat or just shout it quickly so that we. I don't want our moderator to say it too.
The United States.
The United States. Okay, how about the second? Thank you for the answer. How about the second? China. Okay, well, I don't know whether the person that said China, this is Dichi. I don't know whether Dichi was responding to the first question or the second question, but let's assume you respond to the second question. Okay, China is the second largest economy, right? And China is not only the second largest economy, China is the fastest economy, fastest growing economy, right? So it's growing faster than any other economy in the world, and that's why people are saying that if things remain this way, China will become the global power, at least when you talk about economic might and not military might. Now, one of the things you notice about the US that has been mentioned and China is, you see that in the map we'll be sharing, there is a lot of energy consumption, right? The way to grow is to industrialize. It's as simple as that. The way to grow is to industrialize. It's as simple as enterprise, as commerce. If you want to make money, start a business, right? So get involved. Of course, start a business, most times you're going to have to do with power, right? You see clearly that the drivers for energy demand, which is one of the things I think has been mentioned also, there are four of them, just summarizing. We expect the energy consumption, world energy consumption, to have doubled by 2050. That's just about how many years from now? About 25 years from now, give or take, right? So we expect industrialization as we're having it more and more, especially in the developing part of the world. Population growth, right? We're now going to be expected to clock 9 billion then. Global trade and transportation as the world becomes more interconnected, and then changing consumption pattern, especially as you're having urbanization, the way we use energy. I almost said the way we spend energy. Maybe that can be a way you think of energy, because this is not just something broad and bigger than you. You must also think about your own energy consumption, right? And how it contributes to the broader matter we're talking about. So if you think about energy as dollars, then you be careful where you spend it. And most times, actually, when you use, I'm sure Engineer Isla was talking about using inverter, usually we also have one here. Most times when you're on a back system, you're more conscious of the way you use power. You want to switch off. Do we need that light? Switch it up, right? Because you want to conserve, you want to be sustainable. You can as well do that even when you're on the grid, right? So this sums up This sums up the drivers for energy demand, right? And if you look to the right, it's as simple as that triangle you're looking at. What is energy crisis? Energy crisis is when you have imbalance with any of these three corners on this triangle. So there are three, we call it the energy trilemma. Three, before now, it would have been called the dilemma, right? Because it was just about security and access, and then economic development and growth. Like I've been saying, your usage of energy affects your development as a country, right? But in this age, especially since the inception of the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations, we also now consider environmental sustainability as a critical factor as well. So you have to juggle these three together. You have to juggle security and access to energy, supply, then economic development and growth, and environmental sustainability. So that sums up the energy triangle. And anytime you have a breakdown in the balance, right, or in the flow between the three, you have what you call energy crisis. Engineers mentioned some of them going here historically. Okay, so let's run along. Let's look at your energy sourcing, right? Because energy crisis is not only about the unavailability of energy, it's also about your appetite for the energy source, right? For the energy option you're using. So if you look at the world now, today, you can see that 2/3 of the world is still largely relied on fossil fuel, not just even fossil fuel, coal and oil, particularly. By the time you now come to natural gas, which some are trying to say blue hydrogen can be gotten from it, green hydrogen, you see that virtually the entire, if you have 80%, you are excellent, right? You are good. That's what they still promise you are. At least you are very good, depending on the grade. 80 should be an A anywhere in the world. So you can see that by the time you had let me make a pointer here. By the time you had the 24% from natural gas, to the 33% from crude oil, to the 30% from coal, who is good at mathematics? Who's going to tell us what that sums up to? This is where we catch those that are having breakfast when we're having our mentorship series. 87. Okay, this should say 87. So we have 87. Can anyone confirm that's the case? Yeah, I think it's actually 87. So you have 87%. I think this data I got from it was about 2023. I think I got this from the Outlook, Energy Outlook, BP Energy Outlook, right? So you see that as much as there's a lot of sensitization, I wouldn't say noise, I would say sensitization about renewables and environmental sustainability, you see that we still have less than 20% of our energy consumption derived from non-renewable energy sources. And that tells you the reality, right? So if you now want to, that means you can already tell that there's an energy crisis, right? In that you can tell that upper right corner, which is the environmental sustainability, is being challenged by this current reality. Okay. Now, put on top of that the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be doubling energy consumption by 2050. So that places a demand, and I think the world is maybe gradually, but actually, responding to that. Last year, I think for the first time, investment in renewable energy overshadowed investment in oil and gas for the first time. I think it hit the $1 trillion mark, right? So we had more investment in the renewable energy sector than the traditional energy. So I'm going to speed it along because I think I've spent a lot of time trying to lay the groundwork. I'll appreciate if someone just tells me when it's 5 minutes more, so that I don't have to miss out on important highlights. So I was telling you earlier about how energy usage and civilization, how they go hand in hand. And what you can see here is consumption, right? So you can see the areas that consume a lot of energy. Now, obviously, it's not as though the persons are consuming the energy. It's like you have industries, maybe not just the light industry, the heavy industries, maybe they are producing vehicles and what have you. So it takes a lot, it takes a heavy footprint, on energy and sometimes even carbon emission. So you see that just follow, as much as it is colorized, just follow the intensity, right? So from red down to, like blue. So you see that even Nigeria is blue, right? And most of African countries, especially those in the sub-Saharan nation, are just blue. And that tells us that we're doing less than 5. So Nigeria was doing as at, we're doing 4.6, right? 4.6 British thermal units. Agree on that's gigawatt hours in a year per individual. Right, that means we are not, you see, if you are not, I would like you to picture it this way. If you're not using energy, right, then you can be said to be lazy as an individual, right? And if you are a lazy person, you are not industrious. You cannot be a productive person. It's very difficult for a lazy person to be a rich person, right? So you can draw, especially now, without getting political at all, But I just remember this mantra that by one of the aspirants in the last election, talking about moving on from consumption to production. What that means. So because you see, when you one of the ways to really, as a young professional, to really make impact, right, is to be able to detect signals, right? To be able to see ahead. For example, when I was in school, so I left the University of Lagos, my first degree, 2016. That's 8 years ago, right? But when I was in school, I think I was still in year 3. That was when we started Energy Lighthouse. I knew already by reading. I was always reading journals of petroleum technology. I was always reading a lot, and I knew that we're going to have gas as the next big thing. That the world, as much as the world was saying, yeah, renewables and the world is going to move to gas first. Some have called it a transition energy source, a transition fuels. Some others see it as a destination because they say, well, if the world cannot, they are not even convinced that the world can do without crude, but they are sure that the world can do without natural gas, because even coal is still up to like maybe 1/3 of what we use. So being able to see ahead is what really we hope that you can learn. I see a problem ahead and I see how to solve it. I develop myself in readiness for the tomorrow. So you see that Nigeria, if at all we're going to be giants, indeed, maybe talking economics now, we need. So it's not just until the grid is down, right? This is a crisis situation for us as a country of 200 million persons. In fact, I think this is about 240 now. When we have the next census, which has been due for like 2-3 years now, we're going to see how much. Maybe who knows? Maybe we're up to 300. So you can't have that number of persons and not have enough energy supply. Now I'm going to run along. Still talking about the trilemma, and now think about the sectors or the areas or the industries that consume this energy. You see to my left here, I put a quick note: the manufacturing, electricity, and utility. Utility are just things that you need just for life. You need mostly they're electrified, right? So maybe you want to charge. You need power for transportation is another thing anyway, because apart from commuting, there's also transportation, air and maybe shipping and all that. And then the third one here is agriculture. And I think this is something that, for example, I would have been, I would appreciate, even whether it's already done or whether it's something you can think about. I would appreciate how you think about the connection, between agriculture and energy for the Nigerian space, right? Because agriculture is one of the niches that any African country has, right? We have the landmass. It's already our traditional. It's already cultural for us, actually. So you want to think about how can energy and agriculture, how can they mix, and then you're able to solve a real problem. Whether it is the access problem or not. So you see on the right hand side, I've put a bit more under the economics, energy, access, and then the environment. Say supply, demand, and price. Very important. This is just economics for you. Supply, energy supply, availability of as supply and demand dances, then we have a price come up as a derivative of that. So recently, crude oil price has dropped to about 72. I think even West Texas Intermediate, one of the blends, even dropped below 70 for the first time since I think 2021, which is when we were just coming out of the pandemic, right? So and that's reacting to something as a result of the fact that OPEC had said, oh, we're going to produce more. So because traders were anticipating more influx of crude, the price dropped. And then OPEC has said that, well, okay, we're going to defer our increase in production until maybe November, December. Still, the price has not bounced back. So you need to keep your eyes on that as well, right? Because it's not just about oil or solar or those things in themselves, right? As much as we might have people here that are technically minded, you must see how it contributes to economics, right? Supply, demand, and price. The second thing is your energy access and energy usage. I've talked about technology, right? I will be talking about technology, policy, and sustainability. So in your choice for energy access and security, so I'll be speaking within the framework of a country, right? Think like a Nigerian here, right? And if you're not a Nigerian, think within the frame of your country. You need to, and I think this was also mentioned by Engineer Etulan, you need to look at what are the technology, what's the technology focus? What are the policies? This is where things like maybe you mentioned, maybe we should have strategic reserves, maybe we should actually try to subsidize some things, and indeed we are subsidizing something which will come to with the TNG initiative. And then sustainability. The final one is then consider environmental factors, geographical constraint, and then the energy resources, availability of the energy resources, right? Because you don't have the same energy resources everywhere. So Nigeria, for example, is blessed. We passed through a belt that I hope I can remember this correctly now, but it's a belt that countries are passed through that belt. And when you're considering the imaginary lines of longitude and latitude, have an abundant supply of solar power generation potential, right? So that's why you see some parts of the country are pretty hot. You go to the Sokotos of this world, the Bonus of this world. Those are veritable solar farms, from where they can source. So we don't have to just rely on the dam in the middle belt, right? So we can actually we think about our energy infrastructure based on localized reality. Look at solar in the north, look at maybe the dam in the belt and maybe in the southern region, and also look at many other options. So we're going to be seeing a matrix. I suspect I have 5 minutes. Can anyone confirm, please? I don't want to rush too much. Okay, nobody's speaking.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You have about 5 minutes plus.
About 5 minutes plus. Okay, good. Okay, so let's look at scenarios. Let's look at once again. I said it's about you seeing ahead. Thank you very much. It's about you seeing ahead and then preparing yourself for it. Right? That's the essence of this, right? It's not just for you to listen to us. It's about you to be able to do something with what you've learned. So now, if you look at the scenario, looking forward next 25 years, there's this scenario that I think this came out of the World Economic Forum, and they were saying that if we're still going to be going the way of fossil fuel, right? What we have here, they are saying this is a scenario where we are still using a bit of oil and gas. You see that it has dropped from the 83, or was that 83, or was it 87 now? Sorry, 87. To about, what's this now? 47, 57, 66, right? 66. They are saying that, if it is worse off, we can even have more coal. So you see, coal is the one that has been reduced. In fact, I hope you're aware that Nigeria promised to phase out coal, I think by 2030, as part of our COP 2022 commitment, right? So you see that there's a war on coal. Coal is going to be badly hit. Maybe oil and gas can still survive. And this non-fossil fuel feature, I frankly speaking, if you ask me, it might just be a dream. It might just be a dream, but then this is a scenario of what the world could be based on trends, and then we also have the scenarios which are the ones that are actually been hoped for, that we have more renewables, right? That renewables expand from the current sub 10, around 15 at most when you had with others, and come up to about 40%. Okay, so that is that's the trend. So there's actually also in that the fact that there's an energy transition, is imbibed in that or embedded in that is a crisis, because you are now being, I won't use word forced, but you're now being coerced to use energy sources that you might not have, and so you have to. This way, you have to permit me to use the local way of saying this is why you have to shine your eyes. Right, so there's no monopoly of knowledge, right? So we have to be clear-eyed, right? And this is something that, as a young professional, it's not only the Minister of Petroleum or maybe Energy, whatever, that you can also contribute to this in your space, or maybe you have a chance to, maybe during the policy is about to be, a law is about to be enacted, they have a public hearing. The more knowledgeable we are, right? This is the bottom line. The more knowledgeable we are about the trade-offs, I call them trade-offs, right? Because something has to give. You have to keep, taking from Peter to, they say don't rob Peter to people, but we can take from Peter, give Paul. The next month, let Paul give to Peter. And let's just make it a game, right? Of ensuring that at least the light is on, and we are actually getting maximum value. So I'm going to show this for a few seconds, and this just shows the impact. So I'm moving away from energy usage and civilization to tell you the impact. So there's impact as regards greenhouse gas emission. There's impact as regards human health. There's impact as regards ecosystem health. There's land use and material requirement. You would notice something, that many of the renewables have significant impact on the ecosystem. Maybe you are mining lithium or what have you. So that also must be said. It's something that is not usually spoken more of about. For example, if you're having a solar farm, you're going to be taking up much land mass. So we also need to bring this home. We also need to be mindful of this, that it is just a typical case of you trading off something for something, and then you must understand in the global map of things, you must realize where you are, And again, I say we're speaking as if we're thinking within the framework of a country, and then know how best you can move forward, how best you can stay your way out for what would be a real crisis in that energy security or energy insecurity, permit me to use that word, could be worse. That's why sometimes when maybe people are sabotaging energy infrastructure, they could all more or less be charged with terrorism. Because indeed, energy security is akin to national security. Yes. So those times, like Etula mentioned, where you had the grid collapse, those were just plainly failures of the government. Frankly, those things shouldn't happen, and they shouldn't happen in our own time. I don't know whether we agree that this is our time already or our time is still ahead, but at least we are young professionals, we are mentors or mentees, and maybe give or take in another decade or two, you might also be part of those that are, decision makers or contributors. So, okay, I'm rounding off now. So, having shown the impact, and we're now coming to possible solutions. And this is where I want us to pay attention, even though you've already put up your presentations. So, when it comes to solution to the crisis, and again, remember, when you think about the crisis, think about that triangle, right? It's that you're trying to secure access, right? And of course, access is not just access by itself. Look at access in the middle here. Access is that it is available, it is affordable, and it is acceptable. That means it's suitable for the purpose, right? So you don't say, there's energy access, you're giving them solar, but can they afford it? So in some instances, you want to leave people with their fossil fuel and let them engineer their way, let them grow their way into more, permit me to use the word, more luxurious options. But you don't say people should turn off the light, right? Where, if you even remember, remember the map, you see that we're still blue. We've just started. And the fact that I've just started, on the other hand, also means that we can get it right already, instead of going the way of, because sometimes when you have your infrastructure, your facility, your industry set up, say, for example, to consume coal, if you want to transit to gas, you have to shut that whole thing down. So it's best, and that is best that we develop the right way, wearing the green cap of sustainability. Now, moving on to sustainability, that I come to the left, right? And that is simply this mantra you must have been hearing, the 3 R's: reduce, recycle, reuse, right? Reduce, recycle, reuse. You know, there is actually a correlation between energy and material, right? Between energy and material. So the more you reuse materials, the less you have to produce those materials. You understand? And to produce, you need energy. And of course, also, the more you reduce your energy usage, the less strain you have even on the energy supply. Okay, and then now coming to acceptability. So acceptability is in the 3 buckets there. Information, right? What you're doing now helps you to know what is acceptable, what's appropriate, helps you to know how to navigate your way as an individual in making energy decisions about how you use energy, and also even for your people, right? For your community of your country. So you must immerse yourself in that information. In Energy Lighthouse, we call it the information nexus. So by the very fact that you know more, you are more valuable. Just by the fact that we're in the age of the knowledge worker. The fact that you know more, you're able to make more informed decisions, because it's not just about hard work now. Because it's about hard work, menial jobs, those that are working menial jobs should be getting the most returns. But it's about how much you know in this digital age. I'm talking about how much you know. The next thing is we also need to innovate our way out of energy crisis. So, for example, getting off the grid is something that everybody should consider, right? Having modular solutions. So, modular solutions that might not be necessarily going to the national grid. You're just setting up something maybe for your community. You know, some estates, even though it's expensive at the moment, some estates are actually being powered on gas, and they have 24/7 electricity. That's the kind of innovative solution when you cannot afford to lose access to power. Then also incentivization. I mentioned this earlier, that the current government is working on the CNG initiative, and that is a much welcome and laudable development. It's been long in the works, but at last I think it's out now. You can convert your gas, and I think transportation takes as much as 30 to 40%, of energy usage. So you can convert your vehicles to before now we've had diesel, but right now we're having CNG, compressed natural gas. And this helps to reduce wastage. Remember, that was one of the engineer mentioned. But you have wastage at the source, at the field, where you flare this gas, and it also affects the environment. So you can commercialize that, and that's what we're having with the CN initiative of the federal government of Nigeria. So these are the ways, acceptable ways to cope with the energy crisis, because we will always be in that state of making decisions. I think that is where we would. I hope you learned one or two things from this. Thank you very much. I suspect you gave me more time than 20, but maybe because it's my first time. Thanks to JIIPCC and or is it Gypsy as you called it earlier? If you prefer us to call it
Yes,
Gypsy, and to the mentees, the co-mentors and everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, so that'll be all from our end.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. John, for that wonderful presentation. We sincerely do appreciate your time and the effort you put into your presentation. It was really, really wonderful hearing from your end. So please, we'll be moving on to our last mentor for today, Mr. Ayobami. Thank you so much, sir, for staying up to this point. You're welcome, sir, to make your presentation. And like I earlier said, after your presentation, we'll be taking mentees presentation. So please, mentees group 1 and group 2, kindly start getting ready for your presentation. We'll be taking that immediately after Mr. Ayobami is done. So Mr. Ayobami, the floor is yours, sir.
Oh, thank you, Dennis. For a change, it's good to come last. When I'm taking my presentation, I always come first. So it's good to hear other brilliant mentors have something to say about the topic for today. I mean, Engineer Etolam and Mr. John have spoken quite well. So I'll try not to bore you with more details. Dennis, I think you should have my slide. I resent it this morning, just before the class, I believe. Yes.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. So yeah, we might say most of the mentees are lawyers or law students, and you're asking why is JIIPCC having a lot of topics that seemingly not law related, next week, I think next week's topic will be on contract dispute resolution and regulatory compliance, and you might find that, this is what it's more in line with what we lawyers do. But I'll tell you this for a fact. I've been a lawyer for 14 years, and I've been in the energy industry for 10. I mean, power, oil and gas, renewables. And I'll tell you for a fact that we need people like Engineer Etolam and Mr. John around us, because as a lawyer, we still also need to understand to give the right legal advice, and also help in compliance and contracting. And you do better in contracting when you understand what you're doing. So energy crisis or impact on solution might be more of an economical thing or a business commercial, but as you roll as a lawyer, you evolve beyond just being a lawyer to legal advisory, even into commercial management. I've seen my role move from being just a legal officer to a manager, and to directorship of commercial directorship and contracting. So sometimes people ask me, "Oh, you're a lawyer," just because I do more of contracting and commercials nowadays. So that's it. So you see your role evolve more beyond law. So that's why all these our mentors are trying to let you know is quite important. Yes. And so please, you're not supposed to, I'm not saying you should go so deep into it, no, but you're supposed to know a lot. And being lawyers means you have to know a little about a lot, actually. Yes, so it's something we should always have it at our fingertips. While preparing the slide yesterday evening, I think, and the first question I told myself was that I just wanted to share my personal experiences. I was thinking of including my experiences working in the energy industry in the UK, but I said, nah, let's just do it on Nigeria. So have it. I'm happy that the other mentors have gone around the world. So I asked myself, what has happened in the industry economically, what's happened crisis wise, and what are the issues in oil and gas, power, and renewables, and how it's something that I think we should discuss and ruminate about. So moving on my slide, it'll be quite fast as possible. Mr. John is taking some of my time, which is fine by me, because I have limited slides today. So yes, next slide, please. Yes, having as introduction. Next slide, please. So, energy crisis, yeah, it's most talked about around the world. We heard what happened, we heard what's happening in the US, in China, even in Germany as a result of the Russian-Ukraine war. We hear a lot about fossil fuel and climate change we're talking about in weeks now. So yes, there's a crisis in around the world, basically. And most especially, there's a crisis in Nigeria, which we have to face. The Nigerian power supply. We still don't have a lot of 24 hours power yet, and we still have to also build the fact that we have to make more renewable sources to the power generation in Nigeria. Some people they call band here are complaining that the prices of power is quite expensive. The pay for units is quite expensive. The Gencos and the Discos are complaining that they're not making enough money, And in between, you hear that there was power subsidy which the government was paying, just like we were paying for oil and gas subsidy. And so you hear a lot of things. We're not making money. We're paying too much for power and everything. So there's a whole lot of things in the power industry. You even hear transmission issues. The Gencos are saying that they can produce more power, but the transmission company are saying that they don't have the capacity to receive as much as the power Gencos are making. Then the discourse will tell you that also taking that the prices is not sustainable for their business. So and the customers are complaining that the prices are too high. So it's a whole lot of crisis around the power chain. Then the oil and gas industry also you hear a lot of Nigeria doesn't know the amount of barrels we produce per day, oil bunkering, refineries issues, ones owned by the federal government, turnaround maintenance every year and nothing to show for it. Talking about long queues of filling station currently. I know someone that bought for I think 1,100 today. So you hear about glass flaring. Among other things. So these are crises we are facing in Nigeria. Oh yeah, on renewables also, Nigerians are trying to catch up with the world. For photovoltaic and solar, but we see them in small silos. Like Mr. John said, some estates are doing that already. But I'm still yet to see a large solar farm, for example, where you have maybe an hectare or 2 hectares of solar panels. We don't have that yet, So that's it. So I said, yes, we're catching up, but it's always in the individuals. We have some companies trying to catch up, but they always say that investment is an issue and how to make their monies back. Return on investment is also an issue. Next slide, please. So so I decided to take the crisis and silos by silos with the oil and gas industry. Yes. And economically, this is one of the major earnings of our GDP. We rely so much on, and it's more powered by fossil fuel instead of the renewables. So these accounts for a large percentage of the country's export earnings and government revenues. The policy, the regulations, which might do a bit more, which might say it's more legal now. We know about the PIA, the Nigeria Energy Transmission Plan, the NUPLC, and the midstream and downstream regulations, licensing permits, and approvals, which can be quite a lot. And also, there are always a lot of duplication in the sense that they might have to get almost the same permits for multiple agencies, actually. So that's also a part we need to keep in mind, which I believe is a crisis, yes, in the industry, because it's over-regulated on paper in licensing and the like, yes. Then local content regulations also. Mr. Johnson spoke about the local content law. So we have them in oil and gas, and we have them in the maritime, which is called the Cabotage Act. It's a 2003 law, and those two laws, and especially maritime is also law is usually needed when you're having a lot of offshore oil production and everything rigs and offshore, and you need marine vessels, specialized vessels to do that. So we have a lot to do with the body they call NIMASA, which is the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Yes. So yes, the issues we're having in the industry, yes, we will depend on fossil fuel, crude oils and for our economy, and renewables are not still catching up. We're still catching up with the world on that, and that makes us vulnerable to global market volatility. Sense of the oil and gas. You hear that oil and gas is crashing international markets, and our budgets in the country is always pegged at a particular amount of barrel, and if it's lower than that, that means we'll have a budget deficit. So that alone will affect government spending for that particular year, and they have to take more loans, and while having other loans in its service also. Yes. Yes, like I said, we're diverse from fossil fuel. We have host communities, Bohaha. The PIA 2021 is trying to address that by setting up something they call the Host Community Development Fund, whereby the parties from the community and the oil company come together, sit together, and decide on how to help the community. But it has an interesting proviso, which says that if there's any vandalization of the oil and gas companies' assets, the money from the fund we use to repair that. So that's quite an interesting addition to the Act, the PIA Act. Yes, we also have NNPC is still being run by Nigeria, but like a government agency. We're forgetting that the PIA made NNPC a limited liability company. And so you see here that NNPC is the only one bringing fuel in the country. You see here that NNPC is the only one fixing prices of fuel, and things like that. So I feel it's to run more like a government agency than a private limited liability company, which it should be. Commercialization of gas flaring. Yes, NNPC, kudos to them, and the Nigerian government were trying to they gave out some preliminary licenses, I think September, October last year. But I feel not much has still been done towards having that. The whole idea is to stop gas flaring. Let's have the gas being used into productive ventures, and make money. A good example is in production of electricity. I know I consulted for a firm sometime last year trying to build a gas and steam turbine and power plants, in Delta State, and I asked them, how do you plan to get gas? I said, and then NPTC's gases from where they had a partnership, they intend to get gas from there. I thought that's a laudable affair. So laudable thing. So instead of having gas flaring, one of the issues we can have is to fix that, is make it into a commercial venture that benefits energy in the country. Yes. Also, a lot of issues in environmental sustainability and governance, which Mr. John hinted upon already. Then Dangote, which Engineer Tulam also hinted on again. We know a lot of Dangote crude issues, fuel pricing issues, release of the petroleum into the market now is still under discussions, and I know the committees on sitting down there. I believe a committee is coming to Lagos tomorrow on Monday to try and see if they can start rolling out the petrol into the government. Then yes, subsidy. Subsidy has always been a burning topic, depending on the side you belong to. Some are saying that no subsidy. Some are saying yes, it's subsidy. Some are saying that a lot of corruption is involved in the subsidy system, and people are saying that the prices of currently of oil and gas in petroleum products in Nigeria is quite high, especially based on our kind of economy, meaning our poverty index and the like. So yes, so depending on the school of thought you belong, it's still a burning issue and a crisis in Nigeria. Next slide, please. Yes, on power. Yes, so yeah, we rely a lot on fossil fuel and also renewables, because hydropower is also still one good source of power generation in Nigeria. Yeah, the Kanji Dam and the Jeba owned by Mainstream. Yeah, so yes. Then the oil and gas also, yes. The power also, yes, because is also contributes to government earnings. But yes, like I said, there's a lot of Gencos are complaining a lot that they're producing more power than they can give to transmission agencies. So to them, it's a loss to them. So imagine if you can produce 5,000, 6,000 megawatts, and the transmission company can only receive 1,000. So what happens to the other 4,000? So the whole transmission, generation to transmission to distribution chain, that was what the Electricity Act 2023 is supposed to do, by helping making states having the electricity board coming into the place, and also try to diversify the transmission, like which before now, which and still now is still be held by the Transmission Company of Nigeria, but to see where they need help of private companies to come on board. So which I think is still a work in progress, basically. And also, of course, one major regulations also is the Nigerian Energy Transmission Plan, which is supposed to help transit from the fossil fuel to more of the renewables over the next year until 2050 to 2070, according to that plan. Yes, the problems we still, like I said, the problems in transmission, we still have that. I mean, I barely, as long as you're connected to national grid, you barely have 24 hours in a day. I mean, the best you can do is 20 hours, 22 hours. Yes, Disco, like I said, they're claiming to be running on a loss. Yes, they believe the tariff is not sustainable for their business. And since this business is capital intensive, I believe that we also need to understand that they need a return on their investments. And of course, that's quite important for business to sustain. Yes, electricity prices and subsidies, like I discussed earlier. Then the GENCO is also still importing foreign technology into generation of power. And it's our time we have more research and development being done locally. Why? Because one, to become cheaper, and to affect the customers who have to pay cheaper power than having to buy heavy machineries and import generators and turbines and transformers and meters also, as little as meters, have to import all that into the country, of course, which means that the cost of power is going to be quite high. Then yes, financing and investment is quite important. Most financial institutions are still willing to invest and give loans and financial securities on oil and gas fossil fuel related projects than on renewables and power. And most people GENCOs have been clamoring, I believe they've been clamoring over the years to have financial institutions give loans at single digits, and you still have loans given by the banks to be 20%, 27%, as much as 27% for Naira loans, and the foreign loans you have more than 13 or 14% or more. Yes, so we're clamoring for single digits between 6 to 9 that might help in financing and creating investments in that power, and which of course will cascade down to us, the customers. Yes. Then yes, like I said earlier, there has been gas for power initiatives being introduced by federal government to try and encourage flaring of gases to be used, gas flare should be used for power generation activities. Yes. Next slide, please. Yes, renewables. Yes, it's hopeful that our energy transition plan, to create more investment opportunities in that industry that will create especially in industries like the solar, the hydrogen, and the electric vehicles like we have. It will be bad if we start making electric vehicles in Nigeria, and like Mr. John said, also the CNG company. I know Innoson has a MOU with the government on production of CNG vehicles, so and buses. So hope that next few years we see that. So it's a development stage, and I hope that this will be a viable form of investment and also help our economy grow in the next few years. Yes, the major regulations that we have, the climate change 2021, and also the Nigerian Energy Transition Plan also, which is also very important here. The issues we are having, yes, also in renewables, in protection of technology. I still don't know of solar energy panels being made in Nigeria yet, but it's a possibility. And if it's being made, and the possibility that we need to market our product to Nigerians and also the neighboring countries. Yes, there's still insufficient R&D. Yeah, we still, just concentrating more on importation of technology. Yes, on renewables, we still super rely on fossil fuel. We have our reasons. One, it helps our economy. Yes, and also it's more we can produce energy more in mass compared to the renewables. Yes, so we have advantages and disadvantages. Advantages basically involves one technology being moving on, which Nigeria needs to move, and also the climate change effects emission of gas into the atmosphere that the whole world has been clamoring for a change. Of course, the whole world clamoring for a change in Africa is a different story, because I believe, like I already said, we don't emit as much greenhouse gases like the industrialized and Western nations do. But that's a story for another day. So the particularity of Climate Change Act and the Nigerian Energy Transition Plan in Action, my own personal opinion, that is still a document that's not in effect. So I believe sometimes we have good legislations and regulations in place, but the issue is, are we sticking to, is it being used to run these particular agencies and government actions and private individuals? So that's another question for another day. So I believe it's more of a document, but we need to have it's been rolled out in action wise, to have a change and fix our crisis in the energy sector. Yes. Also the funding of in our budgets for climate change acts and climate change targets that I think we discussed last week, and also Nigerian Energy Transition Plan is still an issue. I mean, little or no coverage in our budgets, I believe, so far, and so we need. And I think I remember reading somewhere that says that we need close to, I think, $400 million in a year till 2060. Yes, if we want to meet our targets, and we also have a target for 2030, which I believe that it will be quite a struggle for us to meet. Yes. Yes, funding, yes, and also investment. Also, yes, investment in renewables. People still think it's a futuristic thing, and most investors want to make their money return on investments as quick as possible. So that's why they always choose the non-renewables than the renewables. Next slide, which maybe might be the last slide. Yes, good. So yes, like I said, we have targets, we have action documents. Laws to improve energy, but what the impact is that much is not yet felt impact-wise. Yes, and as we have discussed in the previous slides, the issues and solutions is something that government needs to pay much attention if we want to take the whole energy crisis and find a solution quite serious. Yes, for to overcome this crisis, the renewable and renewable resources are more is being required. I mean, we need more energy. We need to get our refineries right. Of course, we need to check our costing. We need to start producing our technology required for powering our energy industries, especially renewables. Then, that will have, and of course, in the same way, we should also keep an eye on our environment and make sure that we're not hampering our environment as a whole. Yes, governments also create right policies, frameworks to increase investment, such as strict adherence to existing law and regulations, and more of ease on doing business. A reduction on the deficits of government agencies. Yes, you see government agencies and, for example, NEMASA and former DPR and NPLC have some licenses, I believe, are almost similar, and get like a conditional survey for their certificate conditional for also from DPR or DPR and new PLC, and then NEMASA for the same person. I mean, why can't you just get one of the two? The tackling of corruption. Corruption is still, has a lot to do in energy. Is a crisis on its own in the energy sector, and favoritism in energy sections, and also sectors and stability of policies for the investments. Yes. Mr. John spoke about, I think it was Mr. John spoke about the Total. And when I read the story, it was between $5-10 billion in investment, and one of the reasons they gave was the fact that our policies were not stable because the government can wake up on the next morning and make a new policy. So things like this doesn't interest investors, especially foreign investments, because when the government is unstable and they can lose investment in that way in making unstable policies, then of course it will help. There are a lot of bureaucracy all around. Presidential Committee on ease of doing business, led by I think Dr. Oduwole. Yeah, she's been doing quite very good work over the years, and it's something that we really need to help and have a one-stop for everything where all the parties come together and have a one-stop, and things can go smoothly, And I think they're trying to create that for. I was talking to. I was reading something from one of the aides to it's an old secondary school friend of mine, to the FRS chairman, and he was saying something about a one-stop from NEMASA, Nigeria Midstream downstream, and Navy in regards to exportation of XX petroleum products from Dangote, so that it will also help in our earnings of FX for the country, and also help the economy as a whole. So yes, these are the what I could think about last night when I was looking back at my experiences in the industry for the last decade, and how the crisis that we're facing and how we can help the country provide possible solutions to the crisis. Thank you for your time. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ayobami, for that wonderful presentation. Well done to all our mentors. They did so well in just running us through the energy crisis in Nigeria, and not just in Nigeria, globally. They took us through different routes, and it was really nice hearing and learning from them. So please, I would like to have, or we would like to have presentations from our mentees. So, right, we've done all the listening from, we have listened to our mentors and they've shared all the lights that they want to. So now we want to hear from the mentees based off of the research we've made. We want to give you 10 minutes to make your presentations. Do that quickly, and then we'll take what are the comments? We'll be taking questions, right? So please, group presenters, kindly unmute. For group one, kindly unmute and start your presentation. Like I said, you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I'm Oluwatobi. I'm representing Group 1.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Toby.
Yeah. Okay, let me see. Can you see my screen?
Your screen is coming up, but it's not yet up.
Okay. How about now?
Still loading. You can just start with basically some of the introduction while we wait for your screen to come up for you.
All right. So you are discussing energy crisis and the impact and possible solution. So Nigeria is our case study in this scenario. So we have basically energy crisis in our country, looking at it economically, environmentally. One of our mentors mentioned in terms of security rights and then socially. So economically, we have the problem of demand and supply, where you have more demand for energy than supply, and this shows that the availability of energy in our country is quite low, and then also the affordability, our affordability. So when you look at the environmental impact of energy in our country, you look at the impact in terms of ozone layer depletion, you look at forestation, you look at places in the Niger Delta, for instance, now where we have contamination of their soil and water. And on that, on the issue of socially, we have the part of where you see reduction. I mean, it affects the health of people. People tend to fall sick and all of that, and the population in some certain areas. So I move on to the next slide. Energy crisis is as a result of it's as a result of diverse reasons, as I've mentioned earlier. You can look at it from the demand and supply issue. You can look at it from the environmental and then future. And then one major factor you have to look at, and what impact it have on the life of people is that people are no longer able to afford this energy, or let me put it in a better way, people are no longer able to, they spend more money, I get it now, more of their earnings on energy consumption. take a look of at the electricity bills and then buying fuel at very high amount compared to what they used to buy some other time. Maybe like last year, for instance, now around this time last year, fuel was still less than 500 naira per liter, and then compare it now to people receiving that same amount of that same income. Let's say someone receiving 100,000 last year and still receiving, let's say, 120,000 naira now, and then the fuel price has doubled, so it affect the livelihood of the person, but they have to like make more provision for energy consumption for its household. We also look at how it affects small businesses too. Small businesses in terms of imagine someone starting a business at let's say at the beginning of this year now, and then they are not really able to like absorb the impact of this energy crisis. So what happens to them? They pack up and then they decide not to go into business anymore. So this kind of affects our economic growth. So we also have some other look at job losses, in the sense that industries in our country now, some industries are leaving instead of cases of there's this pampers industry kind that led, and this affects people that are working there. This leads to job losses and the like. So I move on to the next slide here. I move on to the next slide. So the some other consequences of economy consequences of economic energy crisis is that we see increase in government spending. You know, we have this dilemma of government removing subsidy and not removing subsidy. In fact, in recent times, we concluded that there is still subsidy on fuel, and then this has actually increased government spending, such that government budget more money to subsidy than to other sectors of the country like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. So energy crisis also, this is an example of the impact of energy crisis. And then we look at disruption in global trade when that leads to an increase in transportation costs for people that are into importation and exportation of goods. And then I've mentioned consumer spending more on energy bills. So let's move on to the next slide. So here I have cost of energy disruption. Cost of energy disruption. So you have for example, you have the removal of fuel subsidy by the Nigerian government. So what happens like when there is energy disruption, like when things are no longer stable, when things are not stable. For instance, now in our country, Nigeria, we have a problem of our refinery not working, and then this problem is as a result of we not able to maintain our refinery number one, and that aside, it has now led us to importing refined products at the global market price and also the global exchange rate, foreign exchange rate. And by so doing, we as the citizens, Nigerians, we buy this product at the exchange rate, like how do I put it now? We purchase this product, even despite government spending on subsidy, we still purchase this product at a very high price. So that's why it's interesting to see Dangote coming out now to say okay, we want to start refinery, we want to start refining our Nigerian oil and our crude oil rather than exporting it further, importing the refined oil and selling it to our citizens. But this time we now refine it and sell it at in our local currency. I think yesterday there was an agreement between NNPC and Dangote to sell at Naira, even despite the fact that Dangote might run at some financial losses. But it will help our foreign reserve because there won't be too much demand on dollar anymore. Because when you are importing, you are demanding for dollars. Okay, you need more dollars to import, and this affects our naira. It devalues our naira. But in this sense now, we have a lesser pressure on demand for dollar, and overall it will affect our economy. There will be a little bit a reduction in inflation, for instance. Now there will be a lesser pressure on the dollar demand. So that is it. And I'll move on to the next slide. So energy prices and inflation, I've mentioned it earlier about the the prices of energy being expensive. And one thing about energy is that for energy to be sustainable, it has to be available, and then it has to be affordable. It has to be available and affordable, because if these two things are out of place, there will be instability in the prices of energy. Now look at a year ago where I mentioned that energy price was below 500 naira per liter. But because of we have problem with implementation of some policies we have on ground, we have problem with um how do I put it now, with the regulations and all of these things in between. So these are the areas that we need to focus on to help in our energy pricing. So the effect of impact of environmental impact of fossil fuels, we have mentioned that already, where we the increase of greenhouse gas emissions, water and soil contamination, pressure on natural resources, delay in transition to clean energy. That is very important, because that if we are kind of stuck in this area where there is no, let me just say, the government in general, they are not trying to look outside the box, for instance. But in some sense, we are moving. The growth is just very slow. That's what let me put it that way. It's until we had this fresh subsidy and then all of this, wow, that's when we started, okay, let's think more of transitioning to CNG. I'm in support of that, but I also have my reservation about that, in the sense that if we are talking about transitioning to CNG, for instance, now, we need to like work on our vehicles also and kind of um we let me say the way it's designed, no, it's like we are recalibrating, or we are changing the system to imagine putting a natural gas cylinder in the boot, which usually occupies some other load, maybe white farming or some other things. You get my point? So it's a burden in a sense, and also it's not cheap. Transforming a vehicle from a fuel consuming a petrol consuming vehicle into a natural gas consuming, it's not cheap. An automobile workshop cannot collect less than 1 million naira. That's based on for my this thing, for my experience. Cannot collect less than 1 million naira to do this conversion. So the government needs to, either the government or private companies, come together, make provision to easily you can how easy you can transition into CNG. CNG is not the final bus stop for us as a country in terms of energy, in terms of energy. Yes. We have I feel we are still going to get into electric vehicles. So CNG is more like the transition phase, where you are transitioning from this stage of fossil fuel into electrical vehicles. So we have a lot of work to do in that regard. So I'll move on to the next slide. To impact on wildlife, habitation destruction, pollution of land. I've mentioned that earlier. And then social impact on vulnerable population. Yeah, ideally, subsidy was meant to be on this thing. Subsidy was meant for the poorest of the poor, according to PwC, in the sense that you were supposed to like subsidy supposed to cover for people that are in rural areas, for instance, people that low earning community. But along the line, when tourism was deregulated, people transitioned immediately from using tourism to natural to cooking gas for in their household. And two, it's more like government is now spending more on subsidy for people that can afford this energy. Two, the energy and the fossil and the fuel that government is subsidizing, they are subsidizing more like for the people like those who have cars, those who have generators, those who have industry. Are you getting my point now? So it kind of has its own complication around that. So you also have some other social impact in terms that it increased poverty. Yes, increased poverty, it increased health risk, and that the impact of fossil fuel in in the population. It reduce quality of life. Yeah, that is one thing I need to mention. In the sense that we have when you have an increase in an increase in energy price, people kind of, in fact, right now the standard of living in Nigeria is falling down below. Like people can no longer afford what they used to afford before. Going to market to buy a tuber of yam for 5,000 naira, which was a year ago you could buy it for 2,000 naira, and then the income to their expenditure is quite far away. It's not justifiable. So that is one thing about that. And let's move on. So what is the role of renewable energy in energy prices? That is where you need to diversify. You need to diversify into other energy choices. Like Mr. Jonas earlier mentioned, there are some estates where they have they are into renewable energy. They generate their energy themselves, and then it's very very effective. So now that
Sorry to
the
cut in, please. Sorry to cut in, please. Can you kindly speed up the presentation so that we can have group two? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Chair. So now that the Nigerian government has allowed signed a policy, a bill that individuals, state government, local government can now generate their electricity. So this is an opportunity for communities, individuals, just come together and do it in a smaller scale. With that, probably the government can be encouraged to do something much better for us. Yeah, so energy assets and poverty alleviation. So energy assets, and like Mr. John mentioned earlier, it needs let me see it again. So energy assets, availability, affordability, and accessibility. So if you can have it at this point, it will help us to solve many of our problems, improve education, better health, and many other things. So in conclusion, yeah, the energy crisis has significant economic and environmental impact, the rising energy costs and inflation. And then the solution, as I've mentioned earlier, need to diversify into renewable energy. By so doing, government can also chip up, I get it now, create better policies and also make out strategies on how to implement this policy because we have too many policies on ground and they lack implementation, and that is one problem we have as a country. I'm done for this. Thanks so much for listening.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Oluwatobi, for that wonderful presentation. And thank you for representing your group. Well done to everyone who worked on the presentation. We are grateful for the efforts you put into the program. So please, can we have group two make their presentation? Group presenter, please unmute, make a presentation, and then we'll be taking questions and feedback from the mentors and then questions and answers.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Victor.
Yes, I'm trying to share my screen.
All right. So please, you can kindly go ahead with the introduction while you are trying to set up your screen.
Yes, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. So good afternoon once again to our mentors, our coordinators, and fellow colleagues. I'll be representing Group 2 on the topic of energy crisis, the impact and possible solution. But as already mentioned, energy crisis is actually a situation where we have energy supply shortages or any disruption as regards energy. Of course, in Nigeria, the current state of our energy industry is extremely regrettable. There are instances of inadequacy of power generation, transmission, and distribution infrastructure. We also have the over-reliance on fossil fuels, which have congregated to create so much problems for the Nigerian energy landscape. So, of course, most times we experience households being frequently hit by power outage, which disrupts our daily lives. Industries are incurring severe losses and operational costs. Institutions like hospitals, schools, and the likes are being disrupted from their day-to-day activities because of the energy crisis in the country. So our content goes through technological solutions to energy crisis, policy responses to energy crisis, infrastructure resilience and adaptation, behavioral and cultural aspects of awareness on technological solutions to energy crisis. So, of course, technology can be used to enhance our energy efficiency, and there are approaches can be used to address this energy dilemma. Of course, this includes the use of renewable energy. It goes forward to solar technology, wind energy technology, as the use of wind turbines, hydropower, which has to do with water, which is 90% efficient. We have geothermals and biomass energy. Also, we can also enhance our energy efficiency through the use of big data analytics, which is basically use of data from various sources like energy consumption patterns, weather data to identify trends and predict demand and optimize our energy usage. So we also have the use of IoT, which is Internet of Things, which is the use of smart meters to monitor our energy and also enable rather automated adjustments to energy use based on current demand and supply conditions. So we also have the use of smart grids, which integrates digital technology into our electricity grid for better management and distribution. So references have been made to the archaic state of our nation's grid and, of course, the incessant breakdowns. Of course, we also have the use of artificial intelligence to forecast energy demand and basically to optimize supply. So we have notable digital technologies that can be used to address energy crisis by encouraging sustainable practices and lower consumption of energy. So here we have transportation electrification, which is basically the use of, or rather the transition from traditional fossil fuel powered vehicles to a shift of electric vehicles. We also have dispersed infrastructures, which is basically a decentralized approach to energy generation and distribution, where energy resources are spread across multiple locations rather than being concentrated in large centralized facilities. We already mentioned Internet of Things, we mentioned artificial intelligence. Yes. So we also mentioned big data analytics. We have the use of smart cities, which are used to monitor energy usage via smart city lighting and smart building. Then we also have what we call digital twins, which allows organizations to track and improve how much energy they use. So generally, the use of these technology solutions will have great impact on energy crisis. So, and we also have the next topic we have here is the policy responses to energy crisis. Of course, laws and policies are effective tools which the society, which governments use to solve societal problems, and energy crisis is not an exception. So it's very important that policies are made in the following direction to ensure good responses to energy crisis. So we need policies for diversification of energy sources, of course, to encourage renewable, the use of mixed sources of energy, encourage renewable energy, fossil fuels and nuclear to reduce dependency on just one single source of energy. So, of course, our PIA, the Petroleum Industrial Act, sets a very good framework for that. However, there are still calls for a national plan to aid in the transition into renewable energy. So we also need policies on investment in infrastructure to be able to upgrade and expand our energy infrastructure. We also need policies to promote energy efficiency in residential, commercial, and industrial sectors. We also need policies on regulatory reforms, basically to overhaul our regulatory reforms to ensure a competitive and transparent energy market. Of course, we know that the constitution was amended to allow states to make laws on distribution, generation, transmission. And also, we've also seen recent transfer of regulatory authorities to states authorities. So these kind of policies are actually welcome to be able to ensure that most of these energy crises are less. So we also need policies for support for research and development, also in price regulation and subsidies. Of know what the policy of removal of subsidies currently doing to our economy. We also need policies to be able to raise public awareness campaigns, and also for emergency measures, policies in such a way that where there can be short-term measures to address immediate supply shortages and disruptions. So of course, we saw the recent fuel scarcity where NMPC came out to say that that they don't have enough cash to be able to offtake fuel from their suppliers. So in such situations, we expect the government to raise policies to be able to address such emergency situations. Even when Dangote came out the other time and was complaining, and saw how the government made a policy that crude should be sold to the refinery in Naira. So things like this. We also have the international policies on international cooperation and cooperation, yes. So basically, which will engage regional or international partnerships to secure energy supplies, share technologies, and coordinate responses to energy challenges generally. Our next subtopic here talks about infrastructure resilience and adaptation. So of course, we have resilience is in infrastructure refers to robustness of structure to withstand hazards like natural disaster, energy shortages, cyber attacks, and administrative mishaps. So of course, best way to ensure that infrastructural resilience is basically to just incorporate resilience mechanisms during the planning stage. And one step would be taking in the siting of the project in a location which is not prone to disruptive elements. So, of course, this can be achieved through the identification of historical stressors and climate change potential threats. So there are some measures listed here for infrastructure resilience, which includes the reduction of asset vulnerability. So, like we already said, we have to make sure that the infrastructure is not prone to disruptions and should be created with an idea to have longevity. So, and of course, in order to achieve this, they must be hardened and sited outside of the high risk regions. So we also have reduction of liabilities and hazardous conditions created by infrastructure. So we should also consider that infrastructure can pose huge risks to the environment where it is situated. For example, power lines have been known to cause wildfires in the US. So the solution to this would be to lace the lines with, maybe dry vegetations for insulation purposes during hot weathers. And this is where environmental and social impact assessment comes in whenever any infrastructural project is being undertaken. It enables us to be ensured that, of course, there are also policies where the discos and even the discos and generating companies, they would always tell people not to build their stores and the likes directly under power cables. So these are ways to ensure infrastructure resilience and, of course, for it not to affect and cause hazards in the society. We also have enhancement of reliability and service delivery of the electricity network. Regular maintenance should normally be conducted in order to ensure proper service delivery and predict any potential dangers that might loom. So, of course, we've seen instances where some people on social media, you hear when they say their distribution companies send them mails citing maintenance from so time to so time. So these are things that should be encouraged to ensure that service delivery is to ensure that the infrastructure is potent and to ensure that service delivery is at its best. Then we also have a reduction in response time to hazardous occurrence, and likewise increase in the capacity to respond to hazardous occurrences. So of course, at all times, there should be an emergency plan in place to guide against such events. Of course, trained personnel should always be accommodated, and they should always be available. So then we have the adaptation strategies for enhancing resilience. We have diversification of energy sources. Of course, that includes renewable energy integration. I could mention the expanded use of solar, wind, and the rest. Then, of course, decentralizing energy system, promoting off-grid and mini-grid solutions in rural and remote areas. And we also have rural electrification projects. Of course, in rural areas in Nigeria that lack access to central grid, they've benefited significantly from microgrid-based rural electrification projects. And most of these initiatives are they leverage localized energy resources such as solar mini grids and small-scale hydropower to bring electricity to remote communities. We have the Rural Electrification Agency mini grids. We also have the agency they've been a lead driver of microgrid development in Nigeria with over 100 mini grids already installed. Some of them are also still under construction as well. So, for example, we have the Rural Electrification Agency mini grid in the village of Baga, Borno State, which provides electricity to over 10,000 people and supports a variety of businesses and social services. We also have smart grids and technology, because the use of smart grids to optimize electricity distribution, because it improves fault detection and enhance overall grid reliability. And we have energy storage, investing in things like batteries to store excess powers and provide backup during outages. And of course, we have microgrids. So developing microgrids, which can of course which can operate independently from the national grid in cases where there are disruptions. And I believe this is the reason why when we hear that the national grid has collapsed, you still see some areas say that they still have power supply. So these are the result of microgrids and mini grids. So having these kind of things enables ensures that there's infrastructure resilience in the event of energy crisis. So our last subtopic here will be on behavioral and cultural aspects, the role of awareness. Of course, creating awareness and educating our citizens about the current energy crisis and the roles they play, and the roles they must play in resolving it. Of course, it's bound to yield results. Just like every other industry, awareness is very important. If you have a new product you want to put out in the market, of course, you have to, advertise it. So likewise, creating awareness to manage our energy crisis is very important. And of course, the roles that this awareness can or plays in managing energy crisis, it helps educate consumers about energy conservation practices, and it encourages the use of energy efficient appliances and practices. And also people build capacity through knowledge and skill empowerment. So also it fosters a culture of sustainability, waste reduction, and preservation of natural resources. It also creates a sense of urgency and public support of energy reforms. I remember when there was energy crisis, and as regards the Dangote refinery, came out and raised awareness on it, and you found out that there was public support, which ensured that our president made a policy at least to be able to ensure that there's supply of crude to Dangote. So these are the rules that awareness creates whenever there's energy crisis. It also promotes innovation and entrepreneurship in the energy sector. So of course, the fact that we know that now that we do not have to rely on fossil fuels, of course, it opens opportunities. A lot of people are now find out they now sell a lot of solar energies. This creates opportunities and helps entrepreneur. The other time, our mentor last week mentioned about the entrepreneurship opportunities in the energy sector. Knowing how to obtain your letters of credit and the likes. So these are what awareness does. So a combined use of both technology and the likes. This would help to ensure that energy crisis in Nigeria is problem is at least solved to a reasonable extent. Yes, I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Victor, for helping out with the presentation on behalf of your group. So quickly, I think we've gone a little far out of time, but then we'll still want to just hear from our mentors quickly, just feedback to the presentation and maybe any other little statements they would like to add. So back to the top, we'll be going first with Mr. Etulam, sir. What did you think about presentation from the two groups? Do you have feedbacks from them for them? And do you have anything you would like to add as we close the session, sir?
Okay, good presentations from Victor Obiara for Group 1 and Olu Atobi Adole from Group 2. I think I'm quite impressed from my time with JIIPCC. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to like 2 years now if I'm with JIIPCC and mentorship. I'm really impressed with the presentations and also able to demonstrate the knowledge of the topics and the materials. Group 1, I think, again, in terms of the presentation, we want to avoid so much cloggy text in your slides and make sure that it's being improved on. Also, Group 2, very good with bullet points and proper demonstrations for in terms of knowledge. I would commend in terms of the demonstration of the knowledge of the materials and also with practical examples that they're able to give it, and also in the context that brings us home to Nigeria when we talk about the energy crisis generally. I think I'm really impressed with that so far. And for all those that have supported in terms of the group members, well done. And during the photo session, I noticed that one other group was not able to meet up. But I think today it's been a good one and should keep it up in terms of that. Also, try to share some specific data in terms of when you are talking specifically to Nigeria and other places. It will help in terms of conveying the message clearer. And if you look at the mentors' presentations, you could see some pictorial and also data in terms of the way it is well structured. You'll be able to have a glance when we go through the slides. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Etulam, for that feedback. I'm sure the mentees are paying attention and they would make those adjustments in the next class. So please, we would like to have feedback from Mr. John. Yes, I think you're still with us. Thank you so much for staying to this point. So, sir, I want to hear a little feedback from you as regards the presentation and any points you would just like to point out, sir.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I think it's a good attempt that both groups have made. So my comments, I think I have three of them. I think I saw in group 2 something that I would expect. Pardon me. Something that I would expect, particularly for those being trained in the legal profession. That's for every information that you cite, you reference. So that for the originality of your work, you ensure that you do not pass off any information or any of your the research material without, acknowledging where you got that from. Okay, I'm seeing an unstable network connection prompt. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I guess I'm not audible. Let me switch. You can hear me clearly. Okay, good. All right, then let me just
Can hear
rush
you.
along. So that's the first thing, right? So the reference, I think, it's a good one from. Okay, thank you. From group 2. Yeah. Let me refer to that again. Now, the second thing, I'm just going to be echoing. Yeah, it's the other way around. That's from group 1. Group 1 didn't have the references. It was group 2 that had it. So the second one has to do with what Mr. Engineer Itula already mentioned, and that the clarity, you know, even if it were a policy paper you were presenting, these days policy papers would have enough infographics and all. So since you're making a presentation um, of possible solution, your initiatives and ideas, it's good that it's not too much of proofs. In fact, the first time I saw it, I was like, um, there's a loose hand in that you needed to. Hello, sir. I'm making a presentation. I'll just call you back right now. I think I've had an interruption.
Yes, we weren't hearing you for a bit, but we can hear you now.
Okay, great. So I was just saying that clarity, the simplicity of what exactly is the message or what are the points. In fact, it's good that before you now go deep dive into it, you just maybe want to list them out. Oh, say these are the possible solutions, or these are the possible, these are thoughts. If it is just a sort of overview you're doing. So it's good that I heard some of them. When you're talking about service delivery, I can imagine from what. Mr. Ayobami had shared, maybe you also had things to do with contracting. These are going to be nascent areas for legislation and for legal works, especially for example, given I think was it Group 1 that mentioned that the Electricity Act. I think that was a good one. So really, my third point is just to say kudos for the research, and I like the fact that you domesticated it. I don't know if you were given such an instruction, but you localized it to your world. As much as it's a global village, the world now, it's also good to still contextualize the reality. So on one hand, so the three things I'm saying is on one hand, referencing is very important. On the second hand, the presentation. So that's as regards how you style and how you. There was somebody's voice that was a bit drudgery, maybe like my own voice now. I don't know, maybe you need to take hot, even though they don't take tea in the afternoon. And then the third thing is just kudos for the content. Yep,
All right.
that'll be
Thank
all
you.
from my. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. John. We sincerely do appreciate. So, lastly, to our final mentor, based off of feedbacks, we'll be taking Mr. Ayobami's feedback.
Yes. Thank you, Dennis. Yes. Just I mean, I just want to add. I think Mr. John said this. Referencing it's quite important as a lawyer. Yes. That's why even judicial precedent is as a lawyer you quote cases. You give sections and acts. So that's also when I'm doing the research work and trying, especially if it's not your original idea, try and have a pointer to the referencing. Why? Because one, you're giving kudos to who the person's thought. Secondly, you're also just in case you have a newer legislation or a newer fact, so we know that this fact was as of this particular year and not of recent. So it gives you a way out of your research work that I quoted something that's a bit obsolete, but I'm not saying that as of now that's what it is. So please, something we should keep in mind. Then I know that and these presenters we had there was overload of information written, and I know you're trying as much as possible not to forget things. Yes, but sometimes when it comes to slides and not when it comes to thesis and research papers. When it comes to slides, you might want to just bring pointers and talk a bit more about it, and that way it shows that you have a proper grasp of what you're saying, and just you can just reciting what we have on the paper. Which, yes, I know both parties also gave a lot of explanations not on the slides, but it's just easier to have. I got both slides last night, and I think last night, yeah, and I just opened it and I was tired in the next few. I mean, after flipping it a couple of times, that I know what we'll discuss it tomorrow. Yeah, so it's good to have it a bit clear and straightforward and everything. Yes, and then the second presentation, I liked it in the sense that he was talking a lot about futuristic plans in the energy industry. I was had a talk with some guys in Aberdeen recently about how technology can be involved in our energy space in Nigeria. He spoke about smart grids, which is a wonderful idea. Yeah, and even just like I was talking to someone, I think, yeah, the same seminar I was talking there, and we're talking about intelligence picking in pipelines, So when they tell you that, there's a foundation in pipeline somewhere and everything, when we have intelligence picking, it gives a feedback to the system, and that says, something has gone wrong with this particular pipe at a particular place. Yeah, so artificial intelligence technology, yes, I like the fact that it's a futuristic thing being brought into conversation now, which is a very, very good thing. Yeah, in all good work. I would expect more of your own voice, more of your own opinion, because we're trying to prefer solutions here, and that's what I was expecting to see more. But I know that hopefully by next week, you won't say that these are more. You say that these topics are abstract to a lawyer, which I believe they are not. But next week is like you are doing your work as a lawyer now, so I expect to see more when it comes to dispute resolution, contracting, and regulatory compliance next week. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, sir, and thank you to all our mentors for the feedback they gave. We really sincerely do appreciate. So please, we'll be moving over to question and answers. We'll be taking, because of how far we've gone in time, we'll be taking 1 or 2 questions from our mentees. Do we have anyone with questions as regards today's topic? And then overall, as regards the research in itself, do we have questions for our mentors? All right, I can see Mr. David, your hand is up. Please go ahead and ask your question.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon to all the mentors. This is a general question based on research. I've seen a bit of debate about the different sources of energy, and I've noticed that some people have said that nuclear energy is preferable to other sources of energy. So I'd like to know, why exactly is that preferable? Does it count as a renewable source of energy? And why should the world transition to nuclear energy? And why isn't Nigeria transitioning to nuclear energy? Instead, it's transitioning to gas energy. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. David, for your question. So seeing that it was an open question, we want to open the floor to any mentor that may want to pass a comment on that on the basis of the question.
Okay, if I could just add something, I'll prefer the engineers and the tech people to talk. But yeah, so there's a debate on that nuclear energy. I think was last week they had someone from Energy Commission of Nigeria, and they spoke about the fact that Nigeria is trying to go into nuclear energy. But we know that nuclear energy is a sensitive topic worldwide. You hear the people of Iran and North Korea being constantly bombarded by Western nations trying to find out what their nuclear energy plan is, and try because why? Because of the active nature of it, one, then two, the fact that it can be used to make atomic bombs. So that's why it's a sensitive topic worldwide, to make sure that the wrong country is not the one developing that nuclear energy, basically. So on it being whether renewable or non-renewable. It said, and that's me quoting someone or quoting a particular article I read. So it said that it's renewable, but the materials being used in creating nuclear energy is not renewable. So that means it's in the middle of which sides you belong to. And as lawyers, one of my professors in class in England always says something that he has no issue with your opinion, but he just has issues with how you logically present them. So if you can logically present it being renewable, then it's renewable. If you can logically present it not being renewable, then it's renewable. Of course, that's not taking away the fact that scientists will be better answer the question of renewability or not. So yes, so the issue with nuclear power, which is just basically how the world sees it, the harmful nature it can be to the environment and as used as a tool of war, and also the renewability or non-renewability of it. So I hope that answers your question.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for helping us with that question. Please, do we have any comments, any other comments from any of the mentors? Okay, Engineer Itulam, yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Yola, for that. Just to add up, I don't know if I need to turn on my video. Okay, just to add up, generally, just like Yola have said, uranium itself, which is one of the major source for the nuclear fuels for nuclear energy, is actually not renewable. It's a finite material, so it's going to be usable. But generally, because of the clean nature of nuclear energy, it's considered the energy itself after generation from the fusion process is limitless. So this gives nuclear energy the renewable aspect of it, but the material which is being mined, something like you have uranium, is actually fine.
Okay, sorry, is it just me or is Mr. Itulam's network unstable?
I also can't hear him.
Okay, Mr. Itulam, are you still with us, sir? Okay. I think he's having severe network issues. I don't know if we'll still be able to hear from him. But okay, we would just want to take one last question. So please, if you have a question, please you can go ahead and ask. Okay, seeing that we don't have anyone with a question, I would like to ask a question and then we'll just end it with
I'm
my
raising my
question.
hand though. I can
Okay,
also ask
so
a question.
all right, thank you, Mr. John.
All right. Yes, I can hear you. Okay, so I'll just make it quick. Let me also quickly chip in something on the nuclear. And then the question I want to know what the question I really have is I want to know what our mentees have learned today. I think it's good. We've been here since 11. That's about more than 2 hours now. What have they learned? Whether by I don't we're pressed for time, so maybe they put it in the chat. Except if you have other means of getting that feedback, I think it will be important. Now to you see, whenever you want to measure the impact of any um, of anything actually, maybe an initiative, there are set tools. One of such tools of analysis is the PESO analysis. PESO as in mortar and pestle, right? So that's PESTLE. And I'm sure some people call it pestle. So I'm sure we're conversant. Some of us should be conversant with it. And so it stands an acronym for political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. So these are just ways of checking the impact or the risk of any initiative you're about to carry out. So for nuclear, I would say quickly that it's close to red, if not amber, for most of these points. So political, there's an exposure of whichever administration brings it in. For example, you remember in was that Japan? What year was that? I think that was 2008 thereabout, where they had that accident and it shook the entire administration. So usually there's a political exposure for bringing that in if it goes south. Like Mr. Ibami has said, there's a security concern around the weaponization of the atomic energy. Um, Also, economic. It's actually quite expensive. So you would be, as much as the OPEX is low, right? That's the operating expenditure rather. It is very high on capital expenditure, and you need to subsidize it. So why would you subsidize nuclear as against other options? There's the social. I don't know how many of us have heard about, and this should apply to us lawyers. There's what you call NIMBY. NIMBY standing for not in my backyard. So most times you have communities and individuals kick against the siting of nuclear plants around them because it's a risk to their life. And if you want to site it as far away as remotely away from the city, you would have that challenge of one, uh, the space you would need to get, the clearance of space you need to have around it. You need to condone of and ensure that there is no incursion through that line. If you were to lay that space, right, the perimeter around it with solar panels, you would get the equivalent of the same of the power you generate from the nuclear plant. And then you also want to think about how you then have to use transmission lines to bring the power in. So this, well, maybe it's getting more technical, and this is a legal discourse, but it's just good for us to know that there are set parameters against which we measure. There's also the legal, standardization. One of the things that is an issue globally now is how do you dispose of the spent rods, because it's like a centrifuge system where you have rods, uranium rods, and when they get spent, some people say let's bury them on the ground. But what is currently an area of research is whether you can use the spent rod now. So there are two technology usage for power generation. The one that is practical now and is being used now is fission. Right, fission is the division of the uranium atom, and so you start having cesium, and when you divide an atom, when you break an atom, it releases an enormous amount of energy. Okay, so but what is being worked on, research, is whether we can have fusion such that it is like engineer Etla said, it will now be truly limitless, right? In that you don't have waste that you have to deal with. So I hope that helps. Yeah. And I can see that people have responded to the question. I'm happy about what you've learned. Thanks again for the opportunity. I'll yield back to you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you to the mentees who have put in some of their comments in the chat box. Thank you to I think Mr. Peyin Olua, right? Sorry if I didn't pronounce your name very well, Mr. Oluwatobi. Much appreciation. And well, I think in light of this, right, I would have wanted us to take another question, but we are far spent on time, and we'll be taking that. Let's say we'll be taking more questions in the next session that we'll be having. So with that, okay, yeah, just to before we just close, I remember we normally do take pictures at the end of every class. So please, if you can, please turn on your video so that we can take a quick screenshot and then we can wrap up the session properly. Thank you, Engineer Islam. I can see your video is already on. So can we have more people turn on their video? Thank you, Mr. Ayobami. From the mentees, I can't see any mentees video on. Please, let's respond. Thank you, Christabel. Thank you so much, Mr. John. Yes, thank you, Mr. Silas. All right. Do we have any more mentees on call? Please kindly turn on your videos. All right. Thank you, everyone. I sincerely do appreciate your time and presence in this class. So our mentors for taking out your 2 hours plus to be here. We don't take your presence for granted. We don't take the information you have shared with us for granted. Our mentees, I encourage you to share on all your social media platforms and what you've learned in today's class. Kindly tag our mentors on LinkedIn so that you can point out to the fact that it is from them that you learned in today's session. I encourage all the mentees to be available also for tomorrow's session, for next week's session rather. I think that will be the caps of the whole energy class in itself, right? So please do well to make yourself available, and I'm sure that the mentors will be having in that session will be doing very, very a wonderful job in running us through what we have for that class. In light of this, I want to say thank you once again to our mentors and good night, good day, rather. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. All right, bye-bye. Take care. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.